my personal stories. Thank you. So I'm not often sharing my personal stories, but this topic seems to raise quite a lot of interest. So here I am sharing my my personal story. So let me share my screen and dive in. You should be able to see the slide, right? Give me the thumbs up. Cool, super. Let me just move things around. So I'm Alla, as you already see and know. Originally, I'm from Latvia. I've been in the Netherlands for the last 12 years. Never thought I would stay here. Came here just for 1 year. I did my master's in law. Here I am 12 years later, being in L&D, talking about pivots. And generally, when I was building this presentation today, I was sort of thinking and looking at what can I do? My content here is very cryptic, so I'm not going to stay long on this slide. Overall, I just going to walk you through my journey and through my personal story overall, and let's see where we land. So this is a bit about me. Actually, when I was doing this presentation and was looking at my steps, I realized that the whole of my journey has been a pivot. It's like literally every single thing is a change. And overall, there's so much change happening around me and around everyone. And most of it happened naturally. So we don't really pay as much attention to it. We don't ask the how, the what, the why, and all of it. We just go along with it. The moment, at least for me, I started to make it more intentional, and I really started to think intentionally, hey, I want to make the move. I want to make the switch. This is where I want to go. That's where I started asking myself about the how, the why, and the what. So before diving any further, I also wanted to ask you something. Generally, I received so many questions around this particular move. Not all of the other moves and pivots and career changes, but specifically this one. So hence also I'm talking about this, but I'm also curious to hear your points of view as well. So why did you join, and why do you think this topic is hot specifically for you? What are you struggling with? While you're putting your answers in the chat, I hope you are. I can't see the chat, so Lena, maybe you could read some things out when they pop in. But overall, what I've been observing is that the idea of this career change is getting hotter. Is well, of course, where I am now in my career, I have bigger network. There are more questions. There are more people that notices this as well, but there are also a lot of external factors, and I feel now this topic is becoming more and more popular. So career pivots overall, how can we leverage our skills? How can we expand our skills? How can we expand our skills to secure our jobs? What is AI going to do? There are more and more conversations that I'm hearing from companies around T-shaped professionals, M-shaped professionals, the benefits of jiggly careers. There are macroeconomic changes, the remote work, obviously, after COVID, and all of this. How does it affect our careers? How can it help to make moves overall? Are there interesting ideas in chat? Did anyone share?
Yes, we already have Rosita sharing that she's interested in this move herself, from digital marketing manager to trainer or learning and development. And we have more. Sophia says that her challenge is working for many years in the same industry, in the same company, difficult to leave the comfort zone. Susie mentions that she finds it really hard to get the foot in the door, lots of applications, but no offers, unfortunately, even though she thinks she has a lot of transferable experience. Renata mentions that she's working with career changes as a coach, so she's very curious to hear your career pivot story.
Yeah.
Giuseppe is interested to enter the L&D world as a professional and understand how to do it, and this is why he is here. And as why the topic is hot right now, he believes more people after COVID have an interest in education. I think that's true. It's more fulfilling, yes.
That is very true indeed. So different experiences. Oh, okay, go ahead.
Yes, let me share. Jennifer says that she has been in higher education for 15 years, so L&D seems a logical step. Yes, we've seen that a lot. Kristen mentions that she recently pivoted to specializing in L&D, so curious to hear about your path. Irina wants a modern career, and that modern careers are more flexible, so people think it's a way to go. And Iraq says that she agrees with the foot in the door. Yeah, Janina mentions that it's a challenge to go from recruiting to people development, and she's curious about the key steps to build a base.
Interesting. So many different things, but overall, you could definitely see the recurring topic and general is interest towards this area. One disclaimer that I want to make here, that this is a story about my personal journeys, steps I took and lessons I learned. So remember, it's also a process, and it's not something that happened to me overnight. For me, it was a conscious process, intentional process that took me about actually 8 months, and I'm still in the midst of it. So I know people for who it took longer. I know people for who it was a very, very easy sort of process. So there is really no cookie cutter approach. It's not a universal recipe for success. Something to be aware of as well. And something that I also wanted to share that, you know, as I said, it took me a while. It's really a process. And I really love this phrase, and I think it's sort of translates into everything I do. So the day you plant the seed is really not the day you eat the fruit. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes effort. So let's dive in. So overall, as I already mentioned, I knew I wanted to be elsewhere. Like, although I enjoyed my role in recruiting as a recruiting manager, I knew at a certain point I wanted to be elsewhere. It wasn't the right fit for me long term. I had desire to be, elsewhere. I wanted something more fulfilling for myself, also something that's more aligned with my interest. I don't know if I mentioned in the beginning, but overall, I'm ICF trained now and soon to be certified coach. And I really wanted to connect my further career with something that is a bit more aligned with that, something that would help me to work with leaders, work on organizational development, work with leaders on their professional and personal development. And what's important here, that this was more of a directional vision, not exact definition of my role. So when I was thinking about it and thinking about my vision, where I want to be, instead of focusing on a specific job or job title or company, I took a step back and looked at it holistically. So I wanted to really consider overall aspirations and my goals. Funny enough, I also had a pretty clear idea where I didn't want to be and what I didn't want to do. And I knew that I didn't want to be in recruiting. This is not something that's going to bring me towards where I want to be. I didn't want to become a head of TA, although I enjoyed certain aspects of recruiting. I really loved working with my team. I also realized that it wasn't the right plan for me, it wasn't the right step on the long run. And I also didn't have a burning desire of climbing a career ladder, which may be a bit of a shocking statement to say, but within recruiting, this is not something that I wanted to do. And becoming a head of like tech TA or TA, even though it was an easier and more logical step for me, was just not something that I wanted to do, but it took me a while to get there. Then understanding what I was missing in terms of the experience was really important step. So I knew aspirationally where I want to go, but then I needed to map out, what am I missing? What do I need for me to actually be there? I started to assess what skills and experience I would need. What do I have? What I'm lacking? And honestly, from the bottom of my heart, I can tell, take your time here. It is easier said than done. I have also a few coaching clients that are going through the same sort of exercise and really trying to map out what makes sense for them. What do they need to do? What questions do they need to ask themselves? It's a long journey. It's a hard journey. It's something that you need to do intentionally, but it's a very rewarding process in the end. And I also didn't do it by myself. I had help. I was working with mentors, with my friends, with my family, with whoever I could trust. But we can talk about it a bit later today. This is also something that I will share. And then another thing that I really looked at, obviously the talents and strengths that I could take into account and I could leverage and I could use and transfer to the step that I wanted to take next. And keep in mind that strengths are not only the things that you do well. Strengths are also the things that give you energy. Strengths are also the things that get you out of bed in the morning, something you really excited about. These are not just your things that you can do well. So this is all great. You were going to ask me, right? How do I actually know all of these things? How did I find answers to these questions? My answer to this, I asked myself a lot of questions. The right questions will really guide you through your thoughts. And again, it's not a fast process. You really need to take your time here. Very busy slide with a lot of different questions, but overall, these are just the examples. And, I asked myself a lot of questions and noticed that even though I kind of knew the answer, I kind of knew the idea, I wanted to really formulate it. I want to map it out. And you can do whatever, like you can put it on a notepad, you can do a visual board for yourself, you can just take notes, whatever works with you. But asking yourself powerful questions and taking the time to really honestly answer these questions was the crucial thing for me. It was the biggest biggest help here.
Question, Alla, we have a question in the chat. Renata is curious. Did you engage with the coach for this step?
Well, given that I'm a coach myself, I truly do believe in coaching. And yes, I did discuss these questions and I had help from coaches, but also I had help from a lot of different people. And this is something that I will touch base a bit further in the presentation. Something that really helped me overall throughout all my career. And this is something around advisory board overall for something that I have and something that I would explain. The most powerful question here would probably for me was, what is the biggest thing I wanted to change about my present situation that it helps my future situation? And then from there, I started to dig deeper. Again, take your time here. This is really something that for me was really the most significant thing. Moving along, once you've answered majority of the questions, I started to think like, okay, great. Now I know a lot about myself, maybe more than I even wanted to know. So what's next for me? And I needed to figure out what would be the opportunities that would help me to achieve my aspirations. And generally, there are like two straightforward paths, right? There's external way and there is internal way. For me personally, moving horizontally to a completely new environment, to a completely new team, to a completely new job with new responsibilities is a bit more natural for me to do it internally. However, I also know of situations and cases where external moves are also very successful. I also wanted to make an internal career pivot because I really love my company. So that was also another sort of motivation for me. As a next step, I really wanted to identify which area would actually make sense for me to go. Yeah, sometimes even if you've mapped out all of your sort of strengths, you have your questions answered, you even did your job crafting, there might be still very several paths for you to take, not only one. Little caveat here, actually answering maybe some of the concerns about moving from recruiting. I think being in recruiting has a huge advantage. You know many people, you know what is happening in different pockets of the organization. You have access to different insights. You have information about teams, about people, about projects. You know a bit more about the function, the inside kitchen of how things are done in certain teams. So from that perspective, I think recruiting is actually is very positioned to be in. And it really helped me. Having the network of people around me sort of created that natural space for me to go into the conversations with folks, with leaders of different teams, with my peers, and ask questions because it was natural. Like I could find out way more information. So I did explore overall people business partnering, so HRBP's function. And by talking to people and to the leaders there, I also realized that it's not something that would help me to achieve. Although it was very interesting, I also had to sort of ask myself, okay, this is interesting for you now, but is it gonna bring you to your aspirational vision? So I always have this aspirational vision and goal in mind, and the answer was no. In parallel, I think it was a bit of luck there. We were going through L&D sort of transformation and reorganization, and the team is now called TD&C, which is Talent Development and Culture. And there were a few opportunities to explore in that function. The challenge there was that the function was completely new. There were no exact specific roles. So from one perspective, it's nice. So you go and you can job craft, but you also need to be super careful and sort of intentional about what skills do you want, what skills can you bring to the table. So it's the combination and the constant conversation with the leaders, with the needs of the business, and also with what you want to have. But if you're not in recruiting, that shouldn't be a problem as well. Just remember to build the muscle of connecting to people, having networking conversations, being curious, having learner's mindset. These are the things that will help you in any situation in life, but will be also a big help when you want to actually make a career change. So next one is the slide about advisory boards. And this is sort of coming to a lot of questions that came through the chat and also comments, right? How did you do it? This is not a step. This is a parallel process. And that is a very important aspect of this whole process for me. You need people, you need network, you need personal board of advisors, you need friends, you need coaches, you need mentors. And coming already back to what I mentioned before, it is super important to remember that the day you plant the seed is not the day you eat the fruit. These relationships take time to cultivate. These relationships, it's not something that will maybe give you an immediate benefit. But by building strong network of supporting people, I personally was able to gain valuable insights, advice, also a bit of a kick in my career when I needed to, and that's totally fine. And these are not the people who are going to make decision for you. These are people who will help you, who will share different angles. They will share different perspectives. Specifically in this case, my manager, like having generally a manager who's there to support, who is there to guide, who is there to advocate for you is priceless. But they will not know that you actually thinking about pivot if you're not going to voice it. You need to own this. You need to own these conversations. And then, hopefully the manager would come in and start helping. Your senior stakeholders, who the ones that you're building trusting relationship with, who you worked with, and who will be mentioning your name without you being in that room is priceless. Identifying potential mentors. And in every sort of step in your career, you need different mentors. And in this case, I had already some, but I thought, okay, I'm going into a completely new field. I probably want to speak to people that are already in that field so I can find out a bit more about that, so I can find out about challenges. Because I'm sure, the grass is always greener and there are challenges and it's not all rose gardens, like a whole new environment. It is difficult. So being prepared for it and asking these questions up front, personally for me, was also very, very, very important. And then of course your friends and family and whoever else you trust and who you think you value the opinion and insights. And this is something not just for this pivot, this is for all of your life. And actually I use the advisory board for a lot of decisions, maybe too much, but this is like a crutch in your life to have. I really like this cartoon, and this is something that the question that I've been also asking myself a lot. So I made a decision, I went for it. And, back in the beginning, I also mentioned my career, like I had a few other pivots, right? Like I went from law to recruiting, then to L&D. And in between, there were also like some other sort of pivots. And I think the reason for most of those pivots was a natural step, a promotion, a sort of a natural progression in your career. This particular step for me to go into L&D was very different. It was a lateral step, and it was also a bigger challenge for me mindset wise, despite of the fact that I've identified my aspirational vision. I wanted to be a coach. I didn't really need a team to work with. I wanted to work on my own. I had to say no to something that I did pretty well, which is managing teams. And it's still sometimes it comes back to me, and I still ask myself a question: was it the right step? What did you do? But overall, I think the prioritization, and again, coming back to that aspirational vision and why did you do this and rationalize it with yourself, that comes a long way. And overall, you know, you already have this experience. If you do it well, you can always come back to it. If you really realize that this is your biggest strengths, you really need this in your career, and then you make another pivot. That's all about that. So moving forward is another mindset shift that I am still very much struggling with. Like, yay, we made it, we got a job. So after all of the interview processes, after the discoveries, after all of the considerations, you are in your new role. For me, there was really a challenge from going to a place where I knew everything, I knew everyone, and even when I didn't, I knew how to find it. I was very comfortable. I knew how to grow. I stepped into a completely unknown space in a new team with a new manager, with new everything. And even my responsibilities, the scope, like everything was completely different. And now when I look back at it, actually level 1, the unconscious incompetence, is probably a bliss to be in. You don't just realize how bad you are. Then I moved into the level 2, and this is not fun. Honestly, to realize how bad you are after being quite good in your previous job is a challenge to be in. I'm slowly in some areas moving to conscious competence, but a long way still to go. And I'm talking now from the 3 months of experience in a new role. I'm very much in the conscious incompetence. Not fun. And that's where your networking skills and your advisory board and when your mentors come into place as well, right? Like, keep in mind that you are there to learn. And something that also really helped me to sort of breach that gap and be comfortable with conscious incompetence is that your managers and your team knew what you can and what you cannot, what you know and what you do not, what experience do you still need to gain. And it is absolutely okay to take your time and focus on building your knowledge and talking to your mentors and talking to your peers and talking to your managers, and take your time and learn, ask questions, be curious, have the learner's mindset. And also remember and remind yourself the fact that you were hired into this job for a reason. The skills that you can bring to the table, the transferable skills, they are there. They're just some other blocks that you need to build on top. But this is also a process. And I guess that's also the reason why you want to do a pivot in the first place, to learn something new, to get out of your comfort zone. So also conscious of time, this is my story. I do hope that you've learned something from it, that some of it was helpful, that you could resonate with something. Please share your stories. I don't know if we have time for questions, Lena, you'd let me know. But otherwise, you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. As I said, as a coach, I work with a few clients that are going through the same sort of areas and maybe some parts of the whole process. So I'm more than happy to connect with some of you. So yeah, let me know. But thank you so much. And yeah, Lena, let me know if there's time for questions. I'll stop sharing my screen for now.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Alla. It was wonderful to hear your journey. And I personally got a lot of takeaways, but we have 2 minutes for questions. If people have any questions, please put them in the chat or raise your hands. Other than that, Alla has been very generous, and then you can reach out to her on LinkedIn, of course. Maybe, Alla, you want to put your LinkedIn here as well?
Let me see if I can do that.
I have a question from Tim. He's asking if you can share a little bit more about your preparation in the recruitment process.
Preparation, what do you mean what do you mean by preparation?
I guess it's just easier to speak there. Yeah, I guess more about how you translate the transferable skill you have from the recruitment, experience from recruitment to something relating to learning and development. And also during the interview, how would you be able to prepare to address some of the criteria required for the role, right? Given that your background is not in like L&D, how did you manage that difference?
Yeah. Very good question. The thing is that, again, there's not really a universal approach. I was going into a team that didn't have a job. So I was just showing my strengths, which I found out and I discovered throughout my whole sort of process of answering questions. And I was like, okay, I'm good at this. I'm good at this. I'm good at this. I'm good at this. This is what I'm lacking. And then I was showing it and sort of connecting it to the talents overall that might be needed in L&D. But if you're already applying for the job, if you already have a ready job description, then you need to really map out the requirements that are there. And out of each requirement, you would see, so this requirement would mean I need to have, I don't know, whatever, negotiation skills, right? Like it's like really relevant to L&D, but for an example. So you go back to what you are doing now in your current position and think, what are you doing on your day-to-day job? What contributes to this negotiation skills? And then you say, I didn't do specifically XYZ, but I did ABC, but which is also negotiation skills. So you really see where you can bridge the gap. Does that answer your question? Okay, I know probably everyone is hungry. It's lunchtime. So I'm hungry too. I feel you.
Lovely. Then if there are no more questions, we can call it a session, right? And thank you very, very much, Alla, for joining us, for having this your lovely story pointed out, also with all the mindset milestones and with the beautiful explanations of the steps. And thanks to everyone who joined. As you notice, we recorded this session because there were quite some people who couldn't join, so we're going to share it afterwards. And we hope to see you soon in another L&D Shakers event.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming and for having me and listening to my ramble. Thank you. Thank you, Lena.
Goodbye. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.